We're going to be talking about this drama between Dangote and, of course, the NNPCL. I'll give you some background, then I'll introduce my guest. He's no visitor to the studio, but of course, when we need to have these kinds of conversations, he's the best person to bring into the studio to have the conversation. In case you do not know, we're live on facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. We're also live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. Join the conversation. We'd like to hear from you on these issues as the conversation continues. Now, if you're listening to us from outside of the country, you can be part of the conversation via via Skype at Nigeria Info FM. By the way, Skype is going. They're telling us bye-bye. So I don't know how we're going to get... we'll probably have to go to WhatsApp calls now for our listeners from outside of the country. Anyway, let me give you some background on the price war that has erupted between the Dangote and the NNPC. Now, a fierce petrol price war has erupted in Nigeria's downstream oil sector as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has moved to match the 860 naira litre price set by Dangote Petroleum Refinery. This development actually follows the deregulation of the sector in 2023, which had ushered in a new era of market-driven competition. Underline that. Now, for years, petrol pricing was largely dictated by government regulations, with subsidies playing a central role in stabilizing pump prices. But, however, the removal of subsidies in 2023 by Mr. President and the subsequent deregulation of the sector had sparked an aggressive price war among marketers seeking to capture the market. Now, a retail outlet survey by Business Day on Monday, the 3rd of March 2025, showed that the NNPC had just adjusted its petrol price to 860 naira per litre, down from 945 as of Sunday. This comes a few days after Dangote Refinery reduced its ex-depot petrol price to 890, from 890, to 825 naira per litre. Its second price reduction in the new year and the third in 2 months. I thought to myself, what's happening? Is it Christmas already? But Dangote had announced 3 filling stations in Lagos as its partner off-takers, with prices ranging from 860 naira to 865 per litre. The NNPC's price adjustment had sparked a wave of competitive pricing among private marketers, with industry experts viewing the move as a strategic decision to remain competitive in a rapidly evolving market. With that said, my guest is joining me live in the studio. This is why I like him. He is Joyce's favorite guest. I'm just borrowing him. Jide Pratt is the COO of Oina, and he's also the country manager for Trade Grid. Jide, it's so exciting to have you in the studio. I love it when you're here because you say things that I probably might not be able to say. It's good to have you. Happy New Year. Have you seen this year?
No, we haven't.
So Happy New Year, even though the year is old now.
Yeah, thank you for talking to me.
Great. Help us make sense of what's happening now. I gave a theoretical explanation as to what's transpired, because a lot of people are happily just going to the filling stations to, fill their tanks, including me. But what exactly is this battle between the NNPCL and Dangote? Because they also announced that 6 months deal is over. So does it mean that Dangote now has to source for crude all over again from outside of the country? And what's happening to our crude in the country?
Okay, so thank you again for talking to me. And like I always say when I talk on fora like this is my perspective based on what I know. Mm-hmm. So let's start from... As
someone who plays in the...
downstream space
yes.
for quite a bit. So let's put it in perspective and let's start from the price war. When you compete on any platform, the winner of competition is the market. Mm-hmm. So I said that to say this. You talked about people driving into petrol stations and seeing prices go down. That's a plus. But to get there, you cannot get there without a deregulated or a free market. Okay. That said, and let's take a step backward. Some years back, we found out that NNPC as a company was the sole importer of petroleum products. Yes. And that happened for about 9 to 10 years in all. What that meant is that there wasn't a basis for competition because everybody had to buy from NNPC. Uh-huh. So that's it. The next thing is that you find out that when a market is fully deregulated, So the May 29, 2023 subsidy is gone, meant that two things were going to happen. And one happened from the private side. So let's be clear. The Dangote refinery came in where Nigeria had zero refining capacity.
Yes.
So that's a massive plus. But that's one. Now, we have importers who had been bringing in petroleum products, some through NNPC, some bringing in on their own. It meant that there was a level playing ground in terms of, if I don't buy from A, I can buy from B. But back to what we're saying, it is competition that drives that. At a certain stage, if someone takes a full control, and I'll use the word full control of a market, the Dangote refinery in itself is what you call a super refinery. It's large, it's brand new, it has a very high Nelson index. And not to complicate anything, a Nelson index just speaks to how well your refinery can crack crude.
So you're saying it has state of the art.
Brilliant. That's the best way to put it.
Okay.
So look at it that there's a Ferrari and there's a Toyota. So let's just leave it at that. Now,
who's the Ferrari? Who's the Toyota?
That's it. So that said, what now happens is that for competition to continue to thrive, a lot of players need to come into the mix.
Okay.
And when those players come into the mix, there needs to be someone who guides how those players come into the mix. That's a regulator. So you find out that as the prices go down, and let's stay with that for a bit, two things had happened. Crude oil prices started to drop at a certain time. When crude oil prices drop, by effluxion, what happens is that prices of distillates, AGO, PMS, based on the quotes that you use to trade them, also begin to drop. So the first wind was that the refinery decided that, look, with this price drops, let me go ahead and drop prices. That was on the one hand. The second hand is that the size of that refinery will drive efficiencies that an old refinery cannot, right? So in terms of margins, and let me stick on this for just a bit, the sole purpose of a refinery is to refine crude oil into petroleum products. When that is done, and I'm going to use numbers now, if I have $1 million in terms of how much I buy crude, the aim of that refinery is to refine into petroleum products and be able to sell, let's say, $1.2 million.
Just so I'm clear, is it just so these petroleum products don't have to end at AGO and PMS?
Brilliant.
So there's petrochemicals
Very
and
good.
other things.
So it's the full. So back to what we said about the Nelson index of the Dangote refinery. It can crack. So right now they started what you call polymers, and let's just say we're looking at things that give you the ability to make plastics. So they've gone there. So, but the aim is this: every time you take $1 million worth of crude, your aim is to maximize what you have refined. To be able to sell products worth, let's say, 1.2. That is called a crack spread. Now, if I decide to discount some of my petroleum products based on the fact that I have some excess, and I decide to go into the market to take a market leadership position, then I can discount. Now, what would happen is that if I'm the market leader, it is very, very likely that the market chasers do not want to be caught out. So what will happen is that they'll try and move their prices as close as possible to still take some of those market shares.
I see.
I said that to say this, just to end this opening statement. A new refinery drives efficiencies, an old one does not. So what you find out is that the newer a refinery is in terms of efficiency, they're higher. So you find out competition now, maybe the NNPC refineries are not as new. They're old.
They're not new.
They're not as new. They're old. And they're not as efficient anymore.
Okay.
So what you find out is that they might struggle to give the discount that a new refinery is willing and able to give.
Okay.
So let's start with that and let's hang it there for now. I think that will be a good
so. I want to talk about. I don't know if there's a way that we can divorce the price war from the 6-month deal of Naira selling crude in Naira to Dangote. I mean, we've heard stories of the fact that the NNPCL, I think all through 2023 or 2023, if I'm not mistaken, no money was, accrued to the coffers because they had, according to them, given oil for money. And so there was nothing to come to the country. Right. But now we're hearing almost a similar story that the NNPCL might not be able to give crude to Dangote because of a similar situation. But then the average miner is saying, could this be because of the price change? Is it affecting their market more than they expected? And then there are also those who are saying, well, we have been importing. I mean, there are other private marketers who said they've been importing. They don't necessarily buy from Dangote. Does that affect anything? I'm just trying to play this in my head. If there are people who have still continuously been importing petrol, and the NNPCL is telling us that Warri is working, that Port Harcourt is working, what's the... Because if we have crude, it should be able to somewhat get to some other people, like the guys who are importing. Why do we still need to import?
Okay, so first, and let me start with the beginning. Crude oil is a national asset.
Yes.
So it goes into what you call the federation account. It doesn't go into a state or local. It goes into federation.
Yeah.
NNPC is what you call a NOC, National Oil Company, even though they say they're private.
But it's a private company.
It's not a private company because Ministry of Finance Incorporated and Ministry of Petroleum, which are government agencies, own 100% of the NNPC.
So you're saying to my listeners that NNPCL is a hoax?
It's not a hoax, but what I'm saying is...
No, because when you say it's a private company, it's a limited company.
It is limited, but it's not private. Let me.
So it's nationally owned.
The two owners of NNPC today. NNPC was a national oil company.
Yes.
NNPC privatized. And so when you privatize and become a limited liability company, what you do is that you open up for shares to be bought.
And that didn't happen.
Two owners bought it. But their Ministry of Finance Incorporated, government, and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, government. So in my opinion, what you've done is that you have just changed the names. But in principle, Marianne, myself, cannot buy shares as it is today. So that's what I mean by not a private company.
And so let's just put this side by side, Dangote, and that's not because they're not other companies. So Dangote is a private owned company. And even the Nigerian government does have shares in Dangote.
Spot on.
So you and I can also buy shares.
Spot on. So we went to the stock, and once they list on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we can buy. And it happens with flour, it happens with cement, it happens with all of the things. So I think you took me off track. We're going to go back to the oil.
Yes.
So what the president did at a certain time was said that, look, in terms of crude oil, to take the pressure off foreign exchange, then let us feed the Dangote refinery and other local refineries with crude oil on a naira per liter basis.
Okay.
So instead of them going to go and source foreign exchange
to buy from
this
outside,
crude,
yes,
then ideally what should happen is that they should pay in naira at an equivalent of whatever quotes they're giving in US dollars. Sadly, I do hear that most of those products have still been paid to a large extent in US dollars. I don't have details that I can verify, but I do hear that quite often.
That's unverified.
Now, so the second thing is also this. If you look at the volumes that they've been given, all the refineries, be it Modular, be it the Dangote refinery, have not been getting adequate crude. And it goes back to what you talked about. Now, the NNPC as an entity had done what you call a forward sale. So I need cash today. What do I have to pledge to get this cash? It's the asset that I have, which is crude. Whether by law or by right they can do that shouldn't be something we sweep under the carpet. Because what it means is that if something goes into the federation account, and you mentioned rightly, states were not able to get allocations because the NNPC did not contribute to the coffers, quote unquote. So what should happen ideally is that between the NNPC, the CBN, Federal Inland Revenue Services, there needs to be some form of agreement to say what you can pledge from the federation account as forward sales. But they've done that. So they're now coming to say that, look, the refinery that we were given on the naira for naira, let me say naira swap basis, it was a 6 month contract. That's what the NNPC is saying.
Yes, that's what they say.
If the 6 month contract it is, then ideally you should not stop, or any statement should not come out till the 31st of March. On the 10th of March, we heard something different. So now what they say in the background is that they're renegotiating. I think someone from the MRS has also come and said, look, it's just a renegotiation contract based on availability, based on pricing, based on what you call either discounts or premiums, but that it hasn't been stopped. It's something that is going to continue. The aim of that, and it's important we say this, the aim of that was so that in terms of the exchange rate, if you have a naira that gets stronger, what it means is that there's no over-reliance, quote and unquote, on the US dollar. And then it more like trickles down into the economy. So you found exchange rates at a certain time started coming down.
Stabilized around 150 and yeah.
So, but there needs to be a constant play between fiscal policy and monetary policy. And it needs to be, what do you call it, sustained, so that continues to affect the economy positively. I think I've answered.
And that's and that's not necessarily happening, which is the basis for this conversation. If we're saying that this plan is being put to a halt of some sorts because some negotiation is happening behind the scenes, but then you've also put the cart before the horse to tell us that, well, you've pledged the oil, you've pledged the crude. Where does that leave us and the dollar situation? Because a lot of people were excited that, the dollar rate was stabilizing, and the Naira was doing a bit better.
Correct.
Does that mean that we're going to see the Naira, again, plummet even more than it had ever?
Definitely, Marianne. So, I'm back to what we said about fiscal and monetary policy. You need to have a sustained strategy to be able to fight the economy. You can't do it on Monday, wake up on Tuesday and say it's not going to work on Tuesday. So if this happens now, and for instance, if no deal is signed based on the fact that we don't have enough volume, then the question I will keep on asking is that if we move from 1.45 million barrels a day, I believe right now if we add condensates are something that come out from the ground when you're getting crude oil. It comes out with water, it comes out with sand, it comes out with oil. So because there's a value, internationally, OPEC will not count condensate, but the Nigerian government, because they can get some revenue from condensate, will count it. So let's say we're about 1.7. It does beg the question that between the 1.5 where we are and the 1.7, if you've pledged in retrospect, what about the going forward? So maybe these are some of the things that these conversations would be having to say that this is where we were then, this is where we are now. The Dangote refinery needs, as a full capacity refining, 650,000 barrels a day. A day. Wow. Now, you have other modular refineries, but nobody is really getting what they should get. So, two things need to happen. Ramp up crude oil production. The sanctity of contracts in this country needs to be a bit more serious. And if those things go well with the negotiation, Dangote is still, as a refinery, importing quite a bit. Importers are also, you mentioned something about importers.
Yes.
And some importers buy from the Dangote refinery. Some importers bring in.
Yes.
So there are two ways around it. If the Dangote refinery gives them a discount that works for them, then they'll buy from the Dangote refinery. If they have traders and they can hedge positions in terms of taking forwards, taking hedges, and they can land at a price that suits them to be able to sell, quality permitting, then that should not be a problem. My point is this. In a free market, you must allow all players. The balancing in terms of the percentage is what needs to be regulated. So
I want to quickly read a statement that was put out by the NNPCL for clarification purposes. They said, the headline is clarification on the Naira crude contract between the NNPC Limited and Dangote Refinery. The NNPC Limited has noted recent reports circulating on social media regarding the alleged unilateral termination of crude oil sales agreement in Naira between the NNPCL and Dangote Refinery. To clarify, the contract for sale of crude oil in Naira was structured as a 6-month agreement subject to availability caveat and expires at the end of March 2025. Discussions are currently ongoing, as you said, towards emplacing a new contract. Under the arrangement, NNPCL has made over 48 million barrels of crude available to Dangote Refinery since October 2024. In aggregate, NNPCL has made over 84 million barrels of crude oil available to the refinery since its commencement of operations in 2023. NNPCL remains committed to supplying crude oil for local refining based on mutually agreed terms and conditions. And this one was signed by Olufemi Shoneye. He's the Chief Corporate Communications Officer for NNPCL. So this goes to buttress the points that we have been making. But then, I'm sure that everyone who's listening to us understands the situation of things. PMS or petrol or crude affects everything, every form of our lives, whether it be our generators. By the way, Adelabu has not given us light, so we don't have light. We have to buy fuel and diesel for our generators. And so if the price of if there is a hike as a result of this, it does affect us and it reverberates and does also shake the economy that's already not in a good place. What does this mean for the average Nigerian economically? Because we can't have these conversations above their head. What does this amount to in naira and kobo for the average person who's just struggling to survive?
It just means more pain. It's sad, but that's the reality. If crude oil prices drop, ideally what should happen is that prices will go down. But again, if crude oil prices go up, prices will go up. What makes it worse is that if there's more pressure now on the US dollar, and then refineries have to go and import more crude oil, then what it does mean is that in terms of the exchange rate, by the time you apply a higher exchange rate, it means that a liter at the petrol station.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.
The pressure is on, the competition is fierce, and the road to the grand finale is almost complete. This Thursday, it's day 16 of the I Beg to Differ Secondary School Debate Tournament, the semi-finals. Only the best remain, and the battle for a spot in the grand finale is about to begin. 2 finalists to be decided. Who will stand tall and who will fall? At 4 p.m., Esther Joseph and Akishunle Oyedamola go head-to-head in a fiery clash. On the topic, female politicians are often oppressed by their male counterparts. One will expose the truth, the other will challenge it, but only one will advance. Then at 5 p.m., the economy takes center stage as Ifeoluwa Olaiya and Chaloku Naomi go head-to-head on a burning issue. Removal of fuel subsidies has helped the Nigerian economy. Is it progress or a pitfall? Relief or ruin? The debate will be fiery, and the stakes have never been higher. Watch the action live on Facebook and on YouTube at Nigeria Info FM. Listen live on Kids FM 101.7. Lagos, this is it. No second chances, no room for error. The path to the finals is paved with words. Who will make theirs count? I Beg to Differ, supported by Obiwizi, Diamonds and Pearls Travels Limited, and Christian Schools. Prize money sponsor, Tollywood College. For sponsorship, email info@nigeriainfo.fm. I Beg to Differ, the tournament of champions.
Anything I want.
Mama, they don't dash me 20,000 naira woofo.
My pikin, who they dash 20,000 naira for this kind time?
That they dash everybody will get smart cash account 20,000 naira.
You mean them go dash me 20,000 naira a woof too?
Yes, so mama. Hey. That they dash all old and new smart cash users 20,000 naira a woof.
Oh yeah, tell your yard people make them dial *939# or download Smart Cash app to open their own account. Make themselves enjoy 20k a woof. Every time when you buy airtime or pay bills with Smart Cash, you go chop inside your 20k. Terms and conditions they shall.
I don't see my own a woof. Oh.
Smart Cash, powered by Airtel.
Hey, here's a question for you. What gets you out of bed in the morning? Is it the sunrise? The sound of your alarm? No, it's that dream, that drive, that unstoppable force inside you. And you know what fuels that drive? It's starting your day strong with the rich, creamy taste of Nescafe Original 3-in-1, carefully crafted from selected coffee beans. So, whatever your hustle, go from maybe or I can't to I can and I will. Nescafe Original 3-in-1. Start strong, finish strong.
Sorry, madam. There's an emergency at the shop. They need you now. It's a serious...
Nothing is more serious than a Golden Morn breakfast with my family. Don't you understand? All our winnings start with a nutritious golden breakfast. Now, sit down. Please join us.
Yes, ma'am. At once.
Breakfast is serious business. Handle it with a nutritious Golden Morn. Now with a great new look. Trust Golden Morn to help fuel your family to win every day. Golden Morn. Make every day golden.
Ramadan jẹ́ àsìkò ìrònú ìmoore àti àsìkò tí a máa ń péjọpọ̀ pẹ̀lú àwọn olólùfẹ́ wa. Yálà àsìkò sààrì kí ilẹ̀ tó mọ́ tàbí àsìkò ìsinu nígbà tó rùn wọ̀. Ẹ má sì gbàgbé láti máa lo òróró Devon Kings kí ẹ sì máa ṣe ìpolongo rẹ̀ fún àwọn mọ̀lẹ́bí yín. Èyí yóò mú àwọn ẹbí yín súnmọ́ yín bí wọ́n sì ń jẹ oúnjẹ tí ẹ fi òróró Devon Kings pèsè. Wọn yóò sì mọ rírì àsìkò tẹ́ ẹ sínú tàbí jẹ sààrì papọ̀. Devon Kings, òórùn aládùn tí ń fanimọ́ra.
Make I ask you the last question. Among the options where I go give you, choose the one where they give better gaming experience where person no fit forget. A, to use your data they watch match early momo. B, they listen to your uncle where be your bungest sports guru. C, Betano. The correct answer now Betano. Don't go tell yourself, if you join the Pata betting platform for inside Nigeria, where you get different betting options, fast cash out, missions where they get it, Jada features, and we go welcome you with bonus of 200,000 naira. Betano, the game don't start. Bet responsibly. Only for people who don't pass 18 years. Betano na proud partner of Aston Villa.
Attention travelers, pack your bags. ValueJet now flies from Lagos to Owerri and Owerri to Lagos twice a week. Enjoy a great mix of modern convenience, affordable fares, and hassle-free travel on every flight. Whatever your reason for travel, ValueJet gets you there in style and comfort. To book your flights, visit our website at www.flyvaluejet.com or download our mobile app on Google Play Store or App Store.
ValueJet, wings for everyone.
Are you a startup, a growing enterprise, or a global powerhouse? Verto helps you experience fast, frictionless global transactions. Need to receive money across continents? Just Verto it. With Verto, you can receive money from over 170 countries in the world and get paid in over 50 currencies, quickly and securely. Our borderless solutions empower startups and large enterprises globally. Effortlessly accept payments, streamline payouts, manage finances, automate financial tasks, and grow revenue. Verto, cross-border payments simplified. Get started now at www.vertofx.com.
During this blessed month of Ramadan, we begin with faith and the spirit of giving.
Families and neighbors come together by sharing delicious meals. From jollof rice to tomato stew, from moi moi to porridge beans, every meal is specially prepared and flavorful with Onga seasoning cubes. Together, we share not just food, but love with those who need it most.
Celebrate the blessings of this holy month with Onga seasoning cubes. Onga, for great taste and aroma.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
Listeners, trust us on Hatchback. Whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories, you know we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Marian Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Well, we're talking about the price war between the NNPC and Dangote, and of course my guest Jide Pratt is trying to help us to make sense of it. We're live on facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. We're also live on YouTube, Nigeria Info FM. You can join the conversation, post your comments. On WhatsApp, it's 08095975805. 08095975805. I beg your pardon. Also, let's let you know that this is not necessarily a conversation that is trying to make one person look bad and the other look better. No, we're trying to make sense of the situation and how it does affect you and I at the end of the day, because all of this, one way or the other, affects us. I don't know the last time they gave you lights. I don't have light. So we have to burn our diesel, sometimes switch to fuel. I think fuel dries up faster than diesel, right?
Yeah, it depends.
Okay, well, I don't know. Anyway, so before we went on that break, you were trying to explain something to us, Jide. I think we were talking about how this affects the average person. Yeah.
So, I mean, like we were saying, it goes back to the pricing.
Yeah.
So every time you buy petrol, you buy diesel, you buy aviation fuel, there are two things that would always stand out. Cost of crude oil and the exchange rate. So those two things play a major factor.
Yeah.
If they go up, prices will go up. If they come down, prices will come down. Now, the critical part for us as a country is that while we try to rein in on the exchange rate and find some stability, anything that disrupts that takes prices back up because the exchange rates begin to go back up.
Mhm.
And when you find out that sometimes pricing don't change if you look at it for some things that we buy,
Mhm.
but the exchange rate is the major critical factor.
Mhm.
So a lot of work for the president and his team to do, but they need to rein in on it.
Let's talk about the NNPCL. I remember that one of the groups, I think the Independent Petrol Marketers Association, had something to say about this. I'd like to read exactly what I think Gillis Harry had to say about this issue. Petran, yes. They had revealed that petrol marketers suffered significant losses amounting to billions following the downward review of fuel prices by the NNPCL and Dangote. According to Petran, the association is advocating for a healthy competition and price stability within Nigeria's petroleum downstream sector. They're also saying, despite the deregulation, there is a need for regulation that will make it mandatory for prices, that prices can only be changed after 6 months. Is that something that you think is feasible?
I think some of what he has said is feasible. I do not agree personally with the fact that you want to keep prices for 6 months. No.
Mhm.
In pricing, there's something called dynamic pricing. Now, dynamic pricing will mean that I can change my prices based on the positives or negatives in terms of my trade.
Okay.
So look at it this way. If crude oil prices go down, exchange rate goes down, why should I wait 6 months before I change my prices? However, he might have a point where he says that if I buy a petroleum product from either a refinery or an importer on Monday, and then that importer on Tuesday or Wednesday crashes that price by 50 naira, what has happened is that I've lost 50 naira on the face of the trade. Because two things: if I was going to resell that or take it to my retail station, what it does mean is that the day those prices go down by a certain 50 naira or 60 naira, it means automatically people come and buy at that new price. So it means that my product is more expensive by 40 or 50 or 60 naira.
Yeah, but then you lose, obviously.
Of course. That's why I think going to that, he's lost money. So what it does mean is that while it's not a 6 month thing, it's a function of, do you want to, every time you sell, wait for the people you sell to sell? But that also doesn't make sense. Because I mean, a refinery is different from a depot. A refinery produces on the day. So her first major risk is what you call a top of tank. So it means that every day she sells, she must be, every day she produces, she must be able to evacuate. If she gets a top of tank, then there's a problem. Because once you shut down a refinery, it's critical.
So if I have, before I get to top of tank, if it means that I have to crash my prices to be able to sell, then I have to do whatever it is
to be able to push volumes. However, if you're going to do this, there's fair pricing and fair competition. If I crash my prices beyond my own price, while that someone can say, look, that's really my own problem, I'm the one taking a loss. If it affects competition or fair pricing, then there is a problem, because at that stage the regulator now needs to ask, what's your price reveal? And I say this, a price reveal is not setting price. It's saying that these are the parameters that I used to get to this price. And this is it for you as the regulator to see. Someone wants to import and there's something called an LDC, landed cost more or less. So it means that I'm also saying this is the basis. In NMDPRA days, which used to be PPPRA, we had a template that was shown on the NNPPRA, PPPRA website. So it showed you what the landed cost of product is. It showed you what the marketer will take as depot pricing in terms of depot margin. It shows you what the retail outlet in terms of dealer's commission. It shows you transportation. It shows you the quotes. So if I'm using ICE as a reference, I'm using Eurobob gasoline. It shows it so that it's a price reveal to guide the market. If you go to Ghana, it happens. If you go to Kenya, it happens.
So why have we stopped it here?
Now, sadly, in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, the regulator is playing catch up. The job of the regulator in the industry is not for whether it's a refinery, whether it's an importer. It's for what is the best way to regulate this for the government and people of Nigeria. I do believe they're playing catch up because a lot of things they should do are not being done at the moment.
I always ask this question for you guys who play in the downstream sector. What is the amount of consumption averagely for Nigeria daily? Do we have a number?
Okay. So, in my opinion, and this is back to what I said, this is my personal opinion. If I went to the NMDPRA site today, I wouldn't see that figure, which for me is criminal. So this is what happens. Every time a retail marketer wants to sell petroleum products, he's lifting from a depot.
Mm-hmm.
So we have what you call landed in-tank volume. The NMDPA has that. However, what the daily sales is, it means that if I sell to 300 retail outlets, what did they sell that day? That's the consumption. However, there were things like Operation White when I was still fully in the industry, and these things are known. I do believe that if we were talking petrol in Nigeria today, and I say this because prices went up, people are not buying as much, people are carpooling, people are buying less quantity. I do believe that we're not using more than 35 million liters of petrol a day. This is my belief.
Today.
This is what I believe. I do believe that the figures of 50 might be bogus.
Why do you think it's bogus?
Because I also think that at the time those numbers were being thrown out in the air, a lot of cross-border sales was happening.
Huh.
So if cross-border sales are happening because there's an arbitrage,
yeah,
then what it does mean is that we're counting daily sales as what we sell and use within us and what goes across the border.
Oh, so we're adding what we sell to other neighboring countries.
Yes. I do not believe today that the borders are 100% sealed. I don't believe that. So I still believe that maybe the arbitrage when we deregulated had reduced.
Mm-hmm.
But if you went to Cote d'Ivoire, if you went to Cotonou, you'd probably still buy it about 2009. So you see, there's still a bit of an arbitrage. So, and now that we're dropping to 800 levels, even if they're at 1.5, there's still an arbitrage. So I do believe that what is being counted, personally, is a combination of what we're using and what is going across the board.
I'm forced to ask you, but then you don't work there. You know, why there's that shrouding the information in secrecy of sorts. Why there's not that openness and trustworthiness coming from the NNPDRA yet.
So where there's chaos, there's always gain, be it positive or negative. In the time of subsidy, companies, a lot of people did this to gain an advantage in terms of what they were claiming.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's no subsidy. So what it does mean is that maybe some people, in my opinion, who have been creating a falsehood will rather die than set the record straight. But the question is this. We're not big on data as a country. Look at census. We say we're 200 million people. Who knows how? When did we count last? And it goes back to data. We're very, 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 very slim on data.
Do you think that Dangote's pricing bordered on fair pricing? The price crash?
I think maybe, and this is back to my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm asking your personal opinion.
I think
Do you
in
think
my
it was fair?
personal opinion, to some extent, yes, and to some extent,
no. Because of the gap.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, crude, and let's be clear, some of us have traded. I mean, sorry, with all due respect, but 50 naira, 60 naira, one swap, yes, you're a brand new refinery, you're driving efficiency, yes. But there must be someone who says that, look, where did fair pricing end and where the competition start? If the competition is no longer fair because it dissuades competition, it dissuades anybody that wants to buy from going to buy because they can't compete with the price, not because that is the price in your P&L, but just to restrict entry, then it's not fair at that point. But then again,
there are complaints that this is what he's trying to do, monopolize again, as you know, fingers have continuously been pointed at him in that regard.
To be fair, these concerns have been on since he started the refinery, before he started, and people will cite sugar. But I always believe that the energy sector is a bit more dynamic. And this is what I always say. Energy security, affordability, accessibility, availability, and adaptability. You can't have a single source for energy in any country, and it should not work. These are my personal, and I'm very, very clear about it. There needs to be a mix where we're refining, We're importing. A lot of people say the marketers should just go together and create a consortium and build a refinery. Not everybody is going to build a refinery.
I mean, it's just like saying that people who are in real estate should all become developers. I mean,
there needs to be across that value chain. There's going to be refiners. There are people who drill for a living and they're never going to come out from upstream. There are people who just provide oil services. There are people who are strictly in gas. A free market must be regulated in a way that standards are kept, quality is maintained, but at the same time, it must not stifle that competition.
Yeah.
Because the end game of competition is that the customer is able to drive into a station and buy at fair value.
Yeah.
That for me is what it is.
Do you think, quickly, because I want to open the phone lines and you have a lot of people sending messages. Well, like facebook.com/Nigeria Info FM. Jide Pratt is here. The phone lines are open 0201 465 7190. That's for the ladies. 0201 277 0993. That's for the men. Start calling. Do you think we're ready for a fair market from, all that's transpired and all concerned? And this is not, cherry picking who's good or who's bad. Do you think Nigeria as a country as a whole and all the players, the big wigs and the principalities and powers, do you think we're ready?
I do think so. And I'll tell you why. We don't have any of these conversations around gas oil, which is AGO. We don't have it around jet fuel. We don't have it around kerosene. So, why are we not ready? Because it has to do with petrol. So petrol is a live wire because a lot of transportation is on petrol. Two things would happen, and I'd say this. If we got to crude oil production of 2.5 million barrels a day, these conversations will reduce. The second thing I would say is this. If CNG, LPG become auto gas options, and people are actually going by non-petrol in terms of their cars, we're moving goods and services. If rail services increase, and we're powering those rail trails by electricity when we have it, and or gas, then you find out that all this will mean that there's less pressure on petrol. So yes, we are ready, and regulation just needs to step up.
Join the conversation. I'm not going to. Jide Pratt is in the studio. 0201 277 0993. If you're a male, for the female, 0201 465 7190. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts. Oh, sorry about that. Do call me back. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Sir, good evening, Mary Ann.
Good evening. What's your name?
I have two questions for you, sir. My first question is this. Why is it that NNPC fuel is very, very light? If you buy it, whether you use it or not, it will just be drying. That's one question. Second question is this. There are too many products from crude oil, which fuel is one of it. Why is it every time fuel? The other ones, are they not making money? That they will use the money from the other one to reconcile this one. Every day, fuel. I think that is only product that comes out from crude oil. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uzo, for calling. I do appreciate it. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Hello? Yeah, good evening, Marianne.
Good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, good evening to you, man. So you have Bayo on the line, calling from Pali Estate here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but yes, I think I commend your guest out there. Yes, he actually spoken quite well on it. Yeah, I'm a trader in the industry as well. Yeah, and of course, Dangote, for me, is a game changer. He has come to break the monopoly of certain set of people that have been determining the fate of many Nigeria as far as this oil and gas industry is concerned.
Okay.
You see, NNPC is just one out of so many. In Apapa today, we have no less than 70 farm tanks there, owned by various set of people. Your guest is there who could confirm this, right? And what has been the practice before? I just think that, fine, me, you, your guest, Yvonne, and that 5 people are not that import a vessel, get the LC, get whatever backing up, import license and all that, bring this product, distribute it, maybe 3 million liters, and of course, we use metric tons, maybe like 5,000 metric tons or not, all along. And they determine how the price, what's price to be sold.
Okay.
It's a cover. But when Dangote comes right now, he has broken on 2 things. The advantage
I'm sorry, your time is up, and because we're racing against the clock. Thank you so much for calling. I have to let you go. Interesting point. I want you to respond to the very first few callers. No, you can talk with it. Yeah.
So I think the first caller, I'm not so sure what he first said about drying up wells.
Well,
Is that what he meant? That
no. He's saying that the fuel dries up faster, that it's lighter.
Okay.
That
so
she's just asking, why is it lighter than every other fuel? I don't know. I can't confirm that.
So when it comes to petrol, there's what is called the RON, research octane number.
Mm-hmm.
There's also density, specific gravity. So there are ranges to these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that if you tip the scale on a range in terms of higher or lower, then it could combust faster or not. Those are why those things happen. He mentioned something about why so much about NNPC. We're talking about petrol. And I think we've touched on that already when we talked about the fact that if we do more in CNG, if we do more in LPG, if we do more in electric vehicles, you'll find out that the pressure is going to be
Just can we leave the electric out for now?
Okay, well, it's going to be tilted away from the conversations around
about petrol. Yes.
We also talked about the fact that AGU and jet fuel have been deregulated for so long. The second person makes a good point. You found out that people were collaborating and holding the market at separate points. So if 5 people coming together, decide that, look, don't crash the price on the 4 of us so that we can sell. It's just a protection strategy. In a market, and I go back to what we're saying, we're having this conversation because 2 things happened. A $20 billion investment came into a refinery. So we solved the refinery problem from a private individual. However, and I need to be clear when I say this thing, if you asked me what's the singular largest thing that had happened in oil and gas in a decade, it's probably the Dangote refinery and downstream. But it doesn't mean we should move from an NNPC being the sole importer of petroleum product for 10 years to having just refining as the solution to our problem. That mix needs to be regulated by the regulator to say that, is it 70% here? Is it 30% here? But what it does mean is that the aim of this is to drive and continue to foster competition, so that things like that gentleman has said do not happen anymore. There's anti-competition, FCCPC talks about it, but it means that I must be able to come into the market based on a P&L and say, this is what I want to do. And if I decide that, no, I just want to go and buy from the refinery, I should be able to. But you see, some things must also happen. All these issues of not being able to give crude oil when it's due, that's the raw material for petroleum product. Anytime I have to go and import it, it means that my cost build-up is higher because I have to go and get more FX. There's a freight issue now. It means that it's going to take me maybe about 14 to 20 days. As against if it's just backdoor.
And you're still incurring, some sort of, because, for the days that it takes to get there, I'm just thinking as a business person.
So the days it takes, so let's put that in, but that's a very important question. So if you take a vessel, you have what you call a laycan for delivery. So it's a charter. I just take the vessel and tell the vessel, I want you to deliver on the 19th to the 22nd. That's my laycan. Then I have 96 hours, or I give you 1 or 2 hours to discharge. That's my lay time. Now, where you're talking about those extra charges is if I get to berth and there are 4 vessels ahead of me on the day I'm supposed to come, then I begin to incur what you call the demurrage, which is a day-to-day fee.
Which also affects your turnover.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Well, we have just about 2 minutes on the clock. I want to read some messages on our live stream. Richard Anita here says, or Auntie, I beg your pardon, says, what are the refineries promised by the government? Nigerians remain silent while waiting for God to come down and force our government to govern better. A final chapter here says, how can imported petrol from Europe, considering shipping costs and higher labor rates, be cheaper than crude refined locally? I would rather think it would be even competitive, let alone... It wouldn't be even competitive, let alone cheaper.
No, he has a good, very valid question, but there are things like hedges that not give the same efficiencies, and then landed products could actually be cheaper. If you, of course,
Christopher from Satellite Town. Another person says, please remember that Dangote said he'll refund all those who bought from him at a higher price to his current price. Why can't the NNPC do the same? And why is Petron crying now? This is from Alamin.
The NNPC can't do the same, and it goes back to what we talked about efficiencies.
Yeah.
The deeper my pockets, the more I'm able to. What Dangote is trying to do is what you call an equalization. So that's what it is.
We're out of time. Unfortunately, these conversations can't just be done in 1 hour. But I want to thank you, Jide Pratt, for being in the studio. Always a pleasure to have you explain to us like we're in kindergarten, so we understand these things and all of the gibberish in the downstream sector. My name is Mariana Cole. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and X, MIMIEYO. Better still, you could just search for Marianne Jikuko. And I'll be back tomorrow on the 3 o'clock hour with Hard Facts. And then, of course, I Beg to Differ begins at 4. I love you, Lagos. Bye-bye.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info.